We are live. All right. So, um, you're welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the health show today. We're going to talk about a very interesting topic today, which is abortion, pro-life, and pro-choice. With me on the studio, we have Favor. Favor, can you please say hi to everyone?
Hi everyone, my name is Favor Borokini, and should I go on to introduce myself, what I do, or that's just okay?
Of course, you should.
Okay. I have a law degree from the University of Benin in Nigeria, but I currently work as a tech policy researcher. I research the impact of technology and digital tools on human rights in Nigeria and Africa, especially as it relates to women.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for joining, Mr. Robert.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Robert Abachi. I have a degree in social studies and I'm currently a socioeconomic analyst.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. So today we are going to talk about abortion, pro-life, pro-choice. Okay. So abortion, what is it really? People really have a lot of divergent views about abortion. Basically, because some call it a murder, other refers to it from the angle of the woman, and then they try to rationalize a lot of options that we're going to carry out on the baby or on the unborn child. So basically, we'll start with the anatomy of the woman, the physiology, and anatomy of abortion. Actually, abortion is the removal of a growing fetus in a woman, definitely maybe in a woman or sometimes um, in a extrauterus. Sometimes a pregnancy can be kept in a device. I've forgotten the name of the device, what they call it, but usually they bring the sperm, especially these in vitro studies where they bring the sperm and the ova from the woman and they fertilize them and make them grow in a test tube, what they popularly refer to as test tube babies. All right. So abortion is usually the termination of the growing fetus. Now, the argument is left for if that fetus is a child, is a life, or if it's not. All right. Many persons argue that a child becomes a child or a child becomes alive when he's when he takes his first breath. Now, others argue that a baby becomes alive when he when he have the first heartbeat. All right, and that heartbeat occurs in the first 21 or 28 days of fertilization. All right, so that is what we are trying to talk about here today. So, Favor, I don't know if you can. Mr. Robert is not here now; he's supposed to handle our next question, but I don't know if you can help us with currently what we have. Is there what is the current Nigeria? What is the Nigeria current state of in case of abortion? Does the government approve of it, or what are the circumstances around abortion in Nigeria?
So in Nigeria, abortion is criminalized under the criminal code and under the penal code. So the criminal code act is applicable to the southern part of Nigeria, while the penal code act is what applies in the northern part of Nigeria. So in the south, under the criminal code, sections 228, 229, 230, 297, 328 criminalize abortions, while in the north, sections 232, 233, 234, 235, and 236 criminalize abortion. So these sections provide for a wide variety of scenarios. So, for instance, if you induce a miscarriage in a woman, because I don't think the term abortion itself is used specifically in the act, but if you induce a miscarriage in a woman, then that is
Okay.
a criminal offense. If you do so through a surgical procedure, it's also a criminal offense. If you administer medicine or what's the tag noxious substances to a woman, it's also criminalized. Then if you assault a woman, or you hit her and you cause her to miscarry, it's also criminalized. So everything related to a woman miscarrying or losing a fetus that is growing in her womb is criminalized under the Nigerian law. But the only exception is where the doctor the doctor sees it sees that an abortion is the only way through which the life of the mother may be preserved. So there are some cases that have tried to stretch the what it means for the life of the mother to be preserved. There are some doctors who have tried to say that an underage child, a minor, for instance, who was raped, for instance, or the victim of incest, that having to bear that child would not be in the well-being of the mother. And I think I read very recently that in Imo State, there used to be a law that permitted for abortions in cases of rape and incest. That was in 2013. But religious
Okay.
leaders, community leaders all campaigned that the law should be repealed, and that law has since been repealed. But there are other provisions under the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act that make provision for um, abortion procedures where there has been incest or rape. But the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is a very special law because each state has to ratify it. So each of the 36 states have to ratify this law for it to be applicable. And because of that ratification process, many states just have the opportunity to pick and choose. So, of course, what is happening is that I think it's extremely unlikely that any of the few states that have ratified the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act have actually retained the provisions that permit abortions in situations of rape or incest. Yes. So that's about what the legal provision is in Nigeria at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much for that brief. I want to ask you mentioned something about penal code and what's the other code you mentioned?
The the criminal code.
Okay, so what's the major difference between those two?
Um, I'm not entirely sure what the difference is between the two of them, but we would like to think that the penal code is stricter in terms of um, certain of its provisions. It's definitely older, I think, than the criminal law, even though it has been amended um, to its recent to be more recently adopted in Nigeria. So, for instance, you find that under the criminal code, if in a criminal case, the defendant is referred to as the defendant in the criminal code, but under the penal code, such an individual is referred to as the accused.
Okay,
So there are some slight
differences.
differences, but on the whole, many of the provisions are the same since both laws were adopted from England.
All right, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Favor, on that. Mr. Robert, I don't know if you can throw more light what we'll be hearing of Roe v. Wade, Roe versus Wade in the United States training. I think that's what brought to light this argument that we have currently on Twitter. I don't know if you can tell us the origin or something. Maybe just throw a light on the origin of that
All right,
fight, Roe versus Wade. Yeah.
all right, thank you. Um, Norma McCovey, who was regarded as Jane Roe, as the law pseudonym they used for that case. She became pregnant in 1969 for her third child, and she wanted an abortion, but she lived in the state of Texas, and in the state of Texas, it was illegal to have an abortion, except when it was necessary to save the mother's life. So,
Okay.
due to that problem, her attorneys went on to U.S. federal court to file a case against Mr. Wade, who was the local district attorney in Texas then, saying that the abortion law of Texas state, even though it is illegal, is inevitably unconstitutional, because then the constitution then said that abortion was legal, although in some states it was illegal. So the Supreme Court later ruled in our favor, and the state of Texas now appealed that decision. But then in 1943, the court ruled that since in the 14th Amendment they said there's a right to privacy, so the woman has a right to choose what happens to her when it comes to abortion, not the state. But this ruling was not absolute, and they had a caveat which says that if it will endanger the woman's health, abortion will be prohibited. So maybe in the first trimester, the state does not have the right to prohibit abortion. In the second trimester, you could, based on findings, if it will be harmful to her, then she does not have that right to abort the baby. But in the third trimester, the chances of her having the right to abortion is very low, because it will endanger her health. So the ruling of this case brought about a lot of outrage from various sectors. Of course, we know, like the religious sector of every community will be against abortion, because it is about taking someone's life. And then there are the people from the other side, the left, who says, since it's the woman's body, she has the right to do whatever she pleases with that body. So that was basically the Roe versus Wade case.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Favor, I don't know. What's your take? Do you think the woman has the right to her body, and then should what's your take generally on the comment from Mr. Robert?
Well, I think that I agree with, um, I personally align with the statement that a woman should have the right to do whatever she pleases with her body, and that this extends to reproductive and sexual health as well. That's basically the summation of my belief related to this conversation. I think that it's even extremely unlikely for people who have progressed, who are in like the seventh month, the eighth month, the ninth month, to all of a sudden want to have abortions. Like it's usually occurs, in situations where medical practitioners themselves are the ones who would advise that a miscarriage be induced. So I think that the the argument doesn't even really hold much water if we are talking about advanced stages of pregnancy. I think personally that 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 autonomy wise, that women should have the right to determine what happens to their body, and that the body of a woman is a private space which the government should keep out of for the most part.
Okay. What's the take? Should abortion be seen only as a right of the woman or as a right of the man? This question is for you, Mr. Roberts. Should it be seen only as a right of the woman or as a right of the man, who also contributed for that pregnancy to be something at all? Without a man, there is no pregnancy at all. So I don't know what's your take on that, Mr. Robert.
Okay, I will revert back to our last interview that we had with the talk, which we spoke about consequentialism, and we all agreed then that who bears the brunt of the pregnancy is the woman. Like, you can't even compare, because the man is an external factor in the whole process aside conception. Yeah. So because she bears that brunt, I think she has that right over the man.
Okay. So you're saying the woman definitely has that right.
Yes.
So now, are you saying the man has no say when it comes to pregnancy at all?
Yeah, the man has a say, but then
Okay.
the majority of the right is to the woman. And then another thing is, even though there are conflicting sides to the whole abortion debate, it all hinges on the definition of the zygote, the fetus, or the baby. If you
Okay.
can actually justify that it is a human being capable of consciousness, capable of feeling pain, this is one of the points that people who are against abortion hinge on. Is the child capable of reasoning? Can the child find solutions to simple problems and all that? So if you can prove that yes, the child is capable of reasoning, of consciousness, the child can be self-motivated, the child has a capacity to communicate, and the child is self-aware, then we can move further to say that at this point it is murder that you are committing when you carry out an abortion.
All right, that's a very, very interesting take. Mr. Robert, I have a question for you, but before then, let me go to Favor. What do you think will motivate, apart from any threats to life, what do you think will motivate a woman to want to induce miscarriage, as you usually call it, apart from threats to life?
Apart from okay, well, I think there are any number of reasons. For instance, it could be that you are not in the right position economically or mentally or physically to be able to be able to care for that child. And I like to ask. I wonder a lot why people um are so against abortions, and they say that they are pro-life, but they know how bad society is, and I just wonder why anyone would want to force a woman to have a child she clearly does not want to have. Because who then is going to care for that child? Who is going to ensure that such a child has the right to live a quality life? There's a difference between, you know, being alive and living the quality of life that you deserve. So if the mother, who is going to be the primary caretaker for that child in the first months, in the first weeks, in the first even years of that child's life, doesn't even want the child to be born, doesn't even want to carry the child to term, I wonder what the justification is for enforcing the birth of such a child. and
Okay.
and so I think that it could be any number of reasons, but what matters would ultimately be the mother, who is serving as, the host for the sustenance of the child until it is able to exist on its own.
Okay. So you're saying the mother can have a host of reasons. Now, is there a chance that it could be frivolous reasons for abortion? People, yeah.
Well, I, d- I don't know how you define frivolous. I don't think that. I think the significance of childbirth and pregnancy is so huge and so, in some cases, life threatening. And even after pregnancy, there are a lot of changes that happens to a woman's body, that I do not think that there is a frivolous reason to not have a child. You might say, for instance, that and I think it also applies to giving birth, that some people want to have children for the wrong reasons. But some people don't want to have children for the wrong reasons. But ultimately, I think it depends on the quality of life that that child will be able to have, and also the decision and the right of the woman to choose if she wants to go through with the arduous procedure or process of pregnancy.
Okay. People, I understand you're saying you don't think there's a frivolous reason to abort. All right. Because the person carrying the pregnancy has the bulk of the responsibility. So she has to decide or not. Now, there's something called if we are having this discussion, let's say 100 years away from now, I understand your context. But what science has helped us, and we're able to understand the development of a child. We're able to understand that there are ways you can prevent getting pregnant. All right. I don't know if you understand. there are ways we can prevent getting pregnant. So I don't know. With the fact that we have contraceptives and many other means to prevent pregnancy, what do you think about those who still get pregnant despite any of this?
Well, there's no how do you pronounce it as con
Contraceptive.
contraceptive? Thank you. There's no contraceptive that is 100% foolproof, and so because of that, the 2% chances that 2% chances of failure in, with IUDs or with condoms or with other diaphragms or other methods that people use to prevent pregnancy. I even think that the fact that some people use contraceptives and still fail to get pregnant should be, and still fail to prevent pregnancy, should be enough justification and proof that we did not want this, but it happened. And and still, ultimately, I still feel that it's still, in spite of what failing or what irresponsibility societally defined resulted in pregnancy, the significance of the toll of pregnancy still, in my opinion, mitigates all of that.
Okay, okay. Mr. Robert, you made a comment the last time, and I said I was going to get back to you. Um, can you tell us when do you think life starts? Is it after birth or in the belly?
Okay, I know medical personnel have more information about life before birth, but from the social perspective, we are just concerned with life after birth, right?
Okay, yeah,
So when we are talking about justifying abortion, and then I said if the child is self-aware, if the child can communicate, if the
yeah,
child is conscious, if the child feels pain. So all these things, when we're looking at, okay, there are various um, theories when it comes to child development, but one of the most profound one is Erickson's psychosocial development theory, where he says
yeah.
in different levels how human beings develop and how we become who we are based on different experiences. So the very first stage is trust versus mistrust, where a baby can either trust or mistrust the world. And in that first stage, he speaks on how the baby, when it have any needs, maybe it's hot or it's hungry, it communicates through crying, right? So
Yeah,
once it communicates through crying, if he does not get that need met, he will not trust that once he's in need, the carer will cater for him. So you
yeah,
can see that that child is self-aware, knowing that, okay, at this point I need to eat, right? And it
yeah,
feels pain from maybe the tummy clenching and all that, and then it communicates, right?
yeah,
So we can prove that, okay, this child has all these qualities. But like I said, if it's when the mother is still carrying the child in her womb, we do not know. It will be over to you medical professionals to determine that. And
all
then
right,
another issue is once um, there's something that is not absolute. Like now, we are talking about if it will save the mother's life or if there's a case of rape. So once there are these ifs, there will always be conflicting sides to it. So if the abortion thing was absolute, that no matter what happens, you have to save this fetus life, for instance, right? It will be
yeah,
easier for everyone. But because there are ifs, there will also be more ifs. Like, okay, what if I decide not to have this baby again? You get. So from
yeah.
the social perspective, there will always be these arguments because there are some caveats to it, and it's not absolute.
Okay, okay. So you mean that these arguments will not be resolved anytime soon?
It will not resolve anytime soon because, okay, yes, we have the pro states and like in Europe and all that, but then here in Africa we are more. should I say, religiously backed by what we do, right? So our morality, like I said the last time, is hinged on religion, not on maybe our everyday discussions. So we are more traditional in our own society, unlike the people that are more, in quotes, progressive.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Robert, I want you to understand that most of the pro-life, they are actually much more religious in their standing. So it's not secluded to Africa. I don't know if you understand. So
No,
most
yes, it's
persons,
because, yeah, no, like if you are pro-choice now, for instance, right?
yeah.
If there are two people, one is pro-choice, one is pro-life, the probability of that pro-life person being religious is very high as compared to those being pro-choice that will say, okay, it's the woman's right. You understand? Like,
Yeah, I understand.
in the case of Roe versus Wade, later on, because Roe was a, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Roe was a lesbian. He had a partner, a long-term partner, I think Connie, I can't remember. Yeah, Connie. So later on, she became a Christian, and then she stopped seeing her partner. She went on national TV to revoke all relationships with her partner. She said she was no longer lesbian. Even though, like later on, there's this documentary she did before she died. In 2016, she died in 2017, where she said that there was this reverend, the Reverend Rob something. He paid her a lot of money for all those things she was doing back then. But her personally, she did not really care. And then she went on to say that even some of those activists gave her money, but her personally, she doesn't care what anybody does with their body. So that was also very controversial. Yes, that was what a documentary she did a year before she died. So then there's a very close relationship between people who are pro-life and religiosity.
Okay. All right. People, sorry, I'm coming back to you, Mr. Robert. I'll ask you some more questions. Um, what do you think if all right, let me just put it straight. What separates abortion, the term abortion, from murder? What do you think? You know, as a barrister, I think maybe if I do a miscarriage and then I have it to defend me in Nigeria court, what would be your defense be like? Oh, am I gone? Is there no way you can help me win the case or
Um, if you induce an abortion in somebody, are you gone? I think you
like
might be
Nigeria
gone.
law? Am I gone according to Nigeria, right?
Yeah, yes,
So
under the Nigerian law.
there's no lawyer that can help me.
It depends on how well your lawyer is able to prove that you did it for the safety and the well-being of the mother in question. And I actually wanted to say this earlier when Mr. Roberts was talking that
Yeah.
the legal personality is what makes something murder. Is what makes the offense of murder. So if an individual is not considered a legal person, that is, I mean, I'm not referring to companies now, because companies are also regarded as persons under the law. But in many different jurisdictions, there are some jurisdictions that only recognize a baby as human, as a person after it is born, and then some only recognize such a child to be a legal person, or there's some Latin term for it. If that child is able to exist on its own without, the aid of an incubator or something. So, and then this, of course, harkens back to the old legal principles of quickening, and in that was quantified as, some people say that between uh, not immediately after, not at the point of conception, but maybe a couple of weeks after that, the child, there's the term used is quickening, that the child has
Yeah.
quickened, that it is a living being that has acquired some sense of, that can feel pain if you commit an abortion or if you induce a miscarriage. But these legal systems have evolved and religious thought about it has evolved to the extent that even the Catholic Church, which also used to abide by the principle, the notion of quickening or quickness, now believes that life begins at conception. So it all depends on how we construe it. But under the Nigerian legal system, um, it's not entirely tagged murder. It's not tagged murder because it's not a human being that has been born, but it is still a crime
Okay.
to cause a child, an unborn child to cease to exist, to die, essentially. So it's not
Okay.
murder, but a crime
Okay. All
akin
right.
to murder.
Now, okay. Okay. Now, I have a question for you, Phil, before I move to Mr. Robert. Pregnancy does not fall on anyone. It's not like rain. You can determine when it comes. It's not like hunger where you don't even know when you're hungry. But pregnancy is an act. So something leads to pregnancy. All right. Now science have helped us create a lot of ways to prevent pregnancy. And at the end, now don't you think that humans will be going too far if after you've missed all those steps, now this is aside rape and aside incest or aside anything that was against your will, of course. Now you willfully have sex, and you don't take it to be against context or on a moral ground to go beyond after all these steps that are there to prevent you to abort a child. What do you think?
Well, well, it's interesting that you brought the conversation to the ground of morality because morality is subjective, and under jurisprudence, we're talking about jurisprudence. Morality is not always law, so something could be moral but not, you know, necessarily legal, or you might not be compelled to do it simply because it is moral. Just like how something that is religious, um, or something that is a sin is not necessarily a crime. So I think it all depends on how you define morality. I personally believe that it is my part of my own code of morality that women should be allowed to live their full productive lives. And I do not think that compelling women to give birth to children that they do not wish to have is moral. I believe that that is immoral. I believe that you know sending women to serve, you know, convicting women 7 years in prison just because they do not want to birth children for the state for the state is, in my opinion, very immoral. And I think that it is a breach of the right
You're
of
right.
uh, privacy. Every individual has their right to their own space, your ability to choose and to do what you want to do with your body, with your ability. And the compulsion by the criminalization of abortion in Nigeria is, in my opinion, a breach of that right to privacy and to freedom of association and to free will, essentially. But I
Okay.
recognize that some people have a different view of morality that involves preserving the life of the child.
All right. Mr. Robert, I know you're quite familiar with adoption, and I think that's sort of supposed to be around your field or something. What do you think if a woman doesn't want a child, she gives a child up for adoption? What do you think? Is that not a viable option?
Okay, yes, that is a viable option, and some actually do. But then the whole process of childbirth, some people don't want to go through that, or they don't want to be cut open with cesarean section. So that is another issue on its own. So some may feel, okay, I don't want to have this child, I don't want to bring up this child, and then even before the child is born, they sign all those papers, and once the child is born, the child is given to another
Okay.
person to care for that child. But then
Okay.
people might feel that even the risk of childbirth, they don't want to go through that. They don't want to go through the physical changes that come with childbirth. They don't want to go through the whole healing process. So
Okay.
they just feel they don't want to have the child at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, this is for the viewers. I can see if you're watching, kindly subscribe for subsequent discussions like this. And if you have any questions for any of the speakers, you should you should type them in the comment section, and then we'll be able to read them out for them. I don't know, Favor, do you have any question for Mr. Robert before we move on? And Robert, do you have any questions for Favor?
Well, I can't think of any particular question at the moment. But if I do, I'll definitely mention it before the session
All right.
ends.
Okay,
All
so
right, Mr.
yeah, my question is, okay, let's say a Nigerian living in Nigeria, for instance, travels out of Nigeria to the US for an abortion and comes back to Nigeria. Is there anything that applies, or because the abortion did not happen in Nigeria, it's fine?
Um, okay, that's an interesting question. So, under the Nigerian law, there is there's a provision that criminalizes conspiracy to commit an abortion. So,
Just imagine the term conspiracy.
so there's a particular case where a woman's, I don't know, her boyfriend or her lover or her husband sent her some pills to use, and the boyfriend who sent the pills was of course also convicted. He was found guilty, and she herself was found guilty of conspiracy. But of course, a lot of these things can fly under the radar if you have the means to even think of traveling out of the country to have an abortion. Already you are beyond the socioeconomic group of people that your class already provides you some kind of privilege and protection against that sort of legal action. But um so and again, it's, I guess it will be something that would be difficult to prove beforehand that somebody went to commit an abortion abroad. Interestingly though, I think Benin Republic last month or 2 months ago has recently legalized abortions. So Benin Republic is very close to Nigeria. You can easily go there via the Lagos state land borders. So I think um, I don't know. I guess that makes it easy for people who want to have abortions. The problem, of course, will be for the Nigerian police to prove that somebody has committed an abortion, conspired to have an abortion. And I think also that that provision is problematic because it gives room for, you know, I want to say victimization, or it could give an opportunity for a particularly determined or dogged police officer or member of the police force to target a particular individual. So if you know that this person is pregnant, maybe you're even the one that impregnated her, and you don't want her to have the abortion, but you have the means, and you suddenly discover that she took a short trip to Cotonou over the weekend and no more pregnancy. It it's there is, by taking advantage of that provision, of course, it could cause you could institute an action. Legally speaking, I don't think anything like this has been done very recently in Nigeria. We have a lot of provisions like that that are not typically enforced.
All right. Thank you very much for that question. Okay. I have one for you, Favor. What if a man does not want a child? You advocate for women's rights. A man does not want a child, but a woman wants it. So how does that play? Does it mean that the man washes off his hand from the care of that child even when it is born, and then he's allowed to fly socially? He doesn't taint his image or stuff. What do you think about that? Because now you are saying the woman does not want, the woman does not want. What if the woman actually wants it, but the man says, no, I don't want this child? And for example, they don't
Well,
live in Nigeria, they live somewhere else, maybe in the place where abortion is legalized. What do you think about that since you are pro choice?
hmm, well, I think that if a man does not want a child, but the woman
Yeah.
wants it, then there's nothing that can be done. Like,
Oh, what was
what I mean is that how would the man go about inducing the abortion that would not be criminal? I read on Twitter last week or 2 weeks ago a thread about a woman. I'm not sure if she was Black American, but her partner was, I think, Pakistani or something, and their family frowned against their families frowned. No, the man's family frowned against the relationship, but they had kept, trying and trying. But I think that having the child was just something that the man was not willing to deal with at all. So he he inserted miso, how do you pronounce that word? Misoprostol
Uh,
or misoprostol or whatever. He swapped her pills, and then during sex he inserted it into her vagina as well, and it induced a miscarriage, which she said she had been having some trouble um getting the police to arrest the guy, because that is of course assault and violence. So I think by nature of the fact that the woman is the one bearing the child, it shifts a lot of the burden about who can make the decision onto the woman and who should. I want to come out and say that I don't think this has stopped many men from abandoning children in the past. So I think, of course, that if you have a child with a woman, that you have a moral duty to care for the child. But beyond trying to convince the woman or force her, or induce an abortion without her permission, there's really nothing that the man can do in that situation. So which is quite a shame. And in some jurisdictions like the US, the UK, and even in Nigeria occasionally, it is possible for women to institute actions to compel men to care for their children. If
so now
if
you're saying a woman can keep a child, and even when the man does not want, right?
yes,
So, Mr. Robert, that brings me to you. You mentioned something about rights. You said both of them have rights. So, to what extent does a man have right to the child, then, Mr. Robert?
Yeah. Before I speak on that, I'll just give my own opinion first. So I feel this is something I've not thought about before, but as you brought it up, I feel there's a sense of unfairness in that, seeing that
Okay.
if the man does not want that child, he will still be compelled to, even if it's to pay money to the woman to cater for
Yeah.
that child. And I'm not talking about, okay, even if the woman have given birth to that child already, if she does not want that child, she has the right to give the child up for adoption, right?
Yeah.
But if the man doesn't want, okay, if she doesn't want the child and the man wants the child,
Yeah.
maybe he can have the child, but she has no responsibility whatsoever after she has given birth to the child to say, okay, I must still maybe pay a certain amount to the man to cater for the child. But then on the other side of the coin, I don't think the people can speak on that. I'm not sure. I don't think a man can actually say, I do not want to have anything to do with this child's life, and then the court will just leave him be and won't tell him to pay maybe some certain, I don't know the legal term for it, to cater for that child.
Okay. Okay. So, I'm trying to ask now. You mentioned something about rights. Both of them have rights. So, to what extent do you think a man should have a right on a pregnancy?
Okay, like I said earlier, if it's before the childbirth, the right of a man in that period is really next to nothing, because he is not the one catering for that child. He's not nourishing the child. He's not the one going through all the physical pain and all that, right? All he did
Yeah.
then was just the conception of the child. That is all he did. That is all he did at that point. And I know we can further argue the emotional aspect of it, which we cannot quantify. So we cannot say maybe the man does not have as much emotional investment in that fetus. That's a whole different thing that we cannot quantify. But if it comes to the biological, the physical aspect of it, since the woman bears the majority of the brunt, she has that right. But then after the child has been born, still I feel this is certain unfairness from the law when it comes to parenting.
Okay. Okay. Um, I'm trying to round up now. Favor. Okay, let me give Mr. Robert this question. I will come to you, Mr. Favor. Mr. Robert, you know you're a sociologist. We've seen the irrational behavior of mostly teenagers and girls around. We've seen some children going wild. I think there's a recent trending video of a child smoking. A child, when I mean a child, I mean 3 or 4 years old, smoking cigarette, and others in a party dancing in a very, very unmorally way. What do you think? Do you think it is it is right, or it is okay to give the decisions of having a child to the responsibility of only this teenage age, especially from the age of 18 to, let me not call them teenager or younger females, 18 to 28? Is it fair to give that responsibility to just one person when you see that it is quite difficult for even a parent or a man and a woman to bring up a child? It is quite difficult for two persons to bring up a child in a socially accepted or societal acceptable way, and then giving that responsibility to just one person, which is the woman. What do you think about that? Since you understand them sociology and then rational child behavior.
Okay, yeah. Before I go on, let me just say that you talked about a child smoking, right?
Yeah.
Funny enough, in some cultures in Nigeria, smoking is not an ill. It's not a societal ill. Like, okay, me for instance, right? My maternal family, some of them are from the north. I remember a time my uncle was telling me when he turned, I think 15, his aunt bought him a pack of foreign cigarettes for his birthday. People from Katsina, for instance, smoking is even something to show social status. So, and this is the thing we spoke about. Trevor spoke about morality being relative. Um, there are different societies that have different set of morality, even within a state, right? So,
Yeah.
in a state, it could be that morality is hinged on religion. In some states, it will be hinged on age. Maybe the old people decide what is right and what is wrong. So, coming back to your question, in some places, that whole decision are made by maybe the elderly people in that community to say, okay, this child or this girl child will not keep this pregnancy. Even though we're speaking about this from the legal perspective, abortions go on from the local legal perspective, not just the constitution of the country itself, right? And
Yeah.
then there are some consequences that come with teenagers um, having children. There are high risk consequences. Like I mentioned the other time, the lady that got crippled because she gave birth when I think she was 14, she got crippled. We have the issues of um, VVF and all that. So these are things that could influence that decision to say, okay, this 17-year-old, this 16-year-old, or even school, for instance, there are parents who, if I know you say that it should not be hinged on the child alone, but even what I'm saying now is, even if you say, okay, let it be a collective decision of the people of authority around that child's life, we will still have cases of abortion coming up due to different factors, due to different feelings. Then you could have a father or a mother saying, my daughter is not going to have a child now, irrespective of whatever age. She can be 28 as long as she's not married. You understand?
Okay.
So even if you give that responsibility to a collective set of people, we will still have this abortion thing going on. And that is why in the end they just feel to make it less complex. Because then if you say, okay, the parents, it will still be more complex. But to make it less complex, we just say it should be an individual choice from that person who is going to bear the brunt of whatever consequences that comes with childbirth.
Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Robert. I appreciate your answer. Last question to favor our guest speaker. Now, having discussion. I mentioned having a discussion 100 years ago would have given us a different perspective to this, and with the invention or with the development of contraceptives, we now know that a female or a partner have varied options. All right, family planning and child spacing and all of that have been able to be properly done with the help of contraceptives. Now, will you change your stand if science, let's say 50 years from now, or maybe 100 years from now, will you change your stance if science develop a means where as soon as a woman gets pregnant, she can transfer that baby from her womb to a toad, maybe a machine or something that can nurse the child from week one to the process of giving birth. So therefore, the responsibility of nurturing that child, because I understand your stance currently is because of the period of pregnancy, where a woman has to stay between week one to week 39 or so. So will you change your stance now, and give equal responsibility to a man and a woman over a baby, over a child, if the period of pregnancy is done with a third, maybe in a third machinery or stuff like that? I don't know if you understand the question.
Uh, yes, I understand the question, and
All
I
right.
like the question very much because I'm a huge fan of science fiction,
All
and
right.
and I think, and I work in tech policy, so I think that there is a unique way that people think that technology could mediate injustices that only compounds them or doesn't do anything to solve them. So this very scenario was something that was trending on Twitter. A couple of I'm always referencing Twitter because I'm always on Twitter, and it was Vitalik Buterin, actually the Ethereum guy, who said that if we had enough innovation, if we had money, we could develop artificial wombs that would ensure that women no longer. He was responding to Elon Musk, who was talking about we need population. He wants all of us to go to Mars. If there are no human beings on Earth, who is going to live in Mars? So, and I think that a reasonable critique of that is that beyond beyond child beyond pregnancy, there's also child care. And I've read that some psychologists have stated that in the formative years of a child's life, that um, it is almost impossible to like distinguish the identity of the child from that of the mother. It's like they are one one person, one being. The child cannot survive outside the care of a primary caregiver, and that person is usually the mother. So part of course, the conversation regarding abortion rights has to do with the care for the child. So if this if this machine, this artificial wombs, are if they are created, if it's possible that a woman doesn't have to bear any of the burdens of pregnancy. I guess my question would be, who would be responsible for the care of that child? Would this also be fully automated? If everything will be fully automated, if um there is not even if conception itself doesn't even take place um in the woman's body at all, and everybody is being bombarded tested babies and all that, then I would say, and then in addition to that, there has been a collective change in society regarding child care, such that it's not going to be also the duty of that woman from whom the zygote was taken out to care for the child after its birth, or the responsibility of some other women somewhere. Then I would say maybe I guess so, because the problem of course is the gender-based nature of this conversation. So if it is possible for all those responsibilities, all those duties to not become again the duty of the woman who did not want to have the child in the first place, then I would say a tentative maybe, leaning towards yes. But
Tentative
I'm
may
still
be
very
leaning towards yes,
critical.
but not yes. But not
But not
yes.
yes, yes.
All right, all right. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. We have gone beyond our time, and it was a very interesting conversation. I don't know.
Let
Okay.
Sorry, I want to chip in because that question is very interesting. So,
Okay.
okay, the whole transferring, because I think this whole abortion debate, the pro-life people are most concerned on the consciousness, really. And like you
Yeah.
spoke about, there are already research around mind uploading, WB, whole brain evolution and all that. So the question now is, if you can transfer that consciousness out of the mother, are pro-life people still going to have a problem? And then she spoke about not just the biological aspect, but also behavioral. Who's going to bring up the child? And I think at this point, we already have an answer to that, because most parenting right now is no longer impersonal. You can have your maid that will be nurturing the child, then we push the other aspects to daycare, to school, and all that. I feel like, okay, maybe in Nigeria, for instance, and other third world countries, we still have that personal care between the mother and the child. But in most countries where everyone is trying to make money, and both parents don't even have time for the children, we've seen how that turns out, where there will be a carer, you drop the baby, even less than a year old somewhere, someone cares for the baby, then the school does the rest. So I think that one is a solution to that behavioral aspect of it.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for your input, Mr. Robert. Thank you for your time, Favor. I don't know. I will leave you guys for you to have a final comment. Favor, give us a final comment before we leave.
Okay, I guess my final comment would be that I think that this conversation it's a very complex one. Some women want to have children, some of them don't want to have children, and I feel like if society, if there were more um options for education, for individuals generally to live better lives, and to um be able to adequately get the outcomes that they want to, that abortions would be probably a less complicated topic than it is now. But I think that that might also be, me being naive or idealistic, because I feel that ultimately that there is a challenge related to women exercising autonomy just because they want to, and outside of conventional morality and religion. So I think that abortion will continue to be a contentious issue, and that it's something that we'll continue to grapple with. But I also hope that more women will have the opportunity to, and privilege to be able to make the decisions that are best for them.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Robert.
All right. So I've said it basically. The whole argument is still surrounded by women's rights. And no matter how we put it, the onus of the whole childbirth hints on the woman herself. So she should have that right to decide if she wants to go through that or not. Because even though you are pro-life or pro-choice, I think the idea that you take someone to jail because she does not want to have a child, it's questionable, no matter what side of the fence you are in. Because you are not just saying, oh, don't do this. You are saying if you do it, you are going to jail, with like all the biological changes that comes with it. So I feel we still need to have more conversations on this. We still need to properly define what a fetus is, and if we should call it a human being or not. So that's it.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I guess I will look for a time to bring in someone who is pro-life to the studio, so we can have a very we can have a critical analysis of because speaking with Favor right now has exposed so many aspects of choices. All right, so
Yeah.
how it is being seen, the idea that it's a woman's body and she has to make the decision is also there, and the idea that the man is just depositing his sperm and allowing the woman gather the all the emotional, physical, and psychological changes that's going to happen during pregnancy is also there. So we are going to get someone who is pro life, and then probably Obiora. What do you think, Mr. Robert?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
All right. So thank you very much, Favor. We really appreciate the time. We hope that some other time when we have any topic that we'll be willing to share, you can easily join us in the studio again. We hope that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Have a nice time today. Bye.